In this unit of our AI-powered training and design course, we're going to talk about some of the ethical AI use and accessibility considerations and how to do this responsibly. So, how do we critically examine how AI impacts accessibility? And throughout this particular unit, you're going to go through additional readings and assignments associated with this to assess the impact that this might have. Not just within your own company, but in the communities that AI resource allocation might affect as well. So, why ethics matters in AI? So, power without neutrality is a big component. AI tools were created by humans, and humans are thus subjected to the biases that they have within their lifetime. There's profound influence, and AI is not a neutral agent. It's not a neutral actor, so to speak. There's benefits. It could support access and efficiency when designed well, but there's a lot of hidden risks. It can reinforce bias, create exclusion, harm marginalized communities. For example, as I was creating stimuli for a particular research study that we had, the only way to build this uh, specific stimuli about people with disabilities, even when using consultants, was to use really, really detrimental and ableist words. A lot of information when we say, how do you utilize inclusive language or write this email in inclusive language way, AI is still not getting that right because a lot of the things that it's based off of is still subject to the bias of the individuals too. So you always have to check. The actual act of using AI has to also have a human component to it. Use AI as the tool, get the information, refine the information afterwards. So, what is ethical AI use then? You have to respect people's autonomy, rights, and human dignity. You have to actively address bias, privacy, and equity issues for harm reduction. And you have to really engage in critical reflection. So, constantly ask who benefits? Who might be harmed? Are you using AI just to get a leg up? Or are you using this to actually enhance the trainings that you're doing to support the individuals that you serve? So, where can AI fail within accessibility? Speech recognition, for example, fails sometimes with accents or other diverse speech patterns. You might say something that's not correct, and speech recognition won't pick it up. Automated captions is part of this, and you might miss critical words or contexts. There's visual recognition, so it might mislabel people with disabilities and mobility devices or not portray things accurately. And again, there's data bias in the training modules that are used for AI models overall. So it can exclude experiences of people with disabilities or from marginalized communities as well. So the information, as we've talked about before, the input is just as important as the output of this. Where is this information being pulled from, and how is that being utilized in the information that's being outputted? So, risks on over-reliance of AI. So, there's lost nuance. Human judgment and lived experience can be erased if you're only using AI for this. Because, again, although it was created by humans, you know your context better than the AI does. You see that. You interact with people with lived experience without depending on that lived experience consultation. And if you're only looking at AI, you're losing that human factor there. There's a lot of rigid automation associated with over-reliance too, and it's harder to provide personalization and accommodations as well. You also have to be very careful with what information you're putting into your AI because there's a lot of privacy issues and HIPAA and FERPA laws, for example. There's missed context, so AI only audits fail to catch user-specific needs. So let's say you put a final paper into a course and you say, okay, I want you to grade this paper based on the rubric items, it's not going to be an expert on the content area or how things are spoken or what topics are being covered, what resources are being supported in those moments. You still need that human factor. You are still the subject matter expert. And then there might be an empathy reduction. So critical thinking diminishes with AI dependency. And when I say empathy reduction, I literally mean not understanding where other people are coming from. So when you remove the human factor out of utilizing these tools, you're only relying on the bias of the tool that you are using. You have to include people and talk with people throughout your processes here. So you want to build ethical AI workflows, and that's what we're kind of trying to teach you in this course too. Testing rigorously, verify the outputs, include everyone as much as possible, prioritize access, and make accessibility a requirement at the front end and not an afterthought. And be transparent. Clarify AI's role and where humans provide support in everything that you create. Many things that I have created in this course were AI supported, but I significantly edited them over and over and over again and received feedback and edited again to make sure that the content I'm giving you is the intended content that I'm hoping you learn. So you have to ask critical assessment. So who is this built for? What biases are embedded in the training data? If mistakes happen, who gets harmed? Right? If your training fails, what happens? How do we reintroduce empathy into this process? These are things that we have to ask ourselves every time we interact with AI and use it as supports for the types of things we're trying to do. So our key takeaways here then are to consider all impacts, recognize the duality. So AI can both help and hinder accessibility efforts. We have to be intentional on how we are including disabled voices, including the voices of the learners we're working with, because representation has to happen at every single stage of development. And then how do we balance that technology and humanity? Great, technology can amplify the components that we're doing, but we need the human interaction in order to have the right inputs first and to get feedback on the outputs that are given.